Guess what? That Glassman guy is at it again.
Oh, shit.
Ricky Boy just doesn't know when to let it go. Please watch this clip from last week's Take Your Shoes Off podcast and discuss. This is Beef Boyz. Begin.
Okay, all right, okay. We're going to watch. Okay, all right. Okay.
You know what this is, right?
Yeah, of
I've
course
seen
I know what this is. Do you?
Yeah.
Okay, so hey, here's everything you need to know about this stuff. Rick Glassman, brilliant comedian, great guy, pal of mine. I don't know, because a year and a bit ago or something like that, I went on his podcast, Take Your Shoes Off Pod. Wonderful podcast. He claims that I didn't want to do some Arnold Schwarzenegger impressions, which is absolutely fucking ludicrous. I did the Arnold Schwarzenegger impression on your show, Rick. I didn't do what you exactly wanted me to do. The fucking guy hands me a script, and that's fine. I still did some of this weird shit. Rick got all up in his feelings about it, and about a year later, just a little while ago, as we're recording today, he had the great Kyle Dunnigan on the show, and he covered it. Oh, he showed what the fuck happened, and that I wasn't playing along. He got Kyle Dunnigan involved, like he gives a fuck. Like, why is Rick on me about this shit? Then we showed it here. We talked about it. We kind of squashed it, don't you think?
I thought so. Yeah.
I thought so also, but no. Rick continued to push further, and now last week on Take Your Shoes Off Pod, he had the great Dan Soder, brilliant comedian. Fucking hilarious comedian, but also an incredible impressionist that does a lot of wrestling impressions. He does
Macho.
the finest Macho Man. I got to give it to him. His Macho Man is fucking perfect. And Dan's a buddy, and he has Dan Soder on the fucking show.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know, what do you think of this thing? The fucking will, like Dan gives a shit. And
he's
I guess
dragging other people into it.
yeah, it's fucking insane. And all because I didn't do, oh no, I didn't do the impression when you wanted me to do the impression, Rick. Oh no, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to not do the impression when Rick Glassman said to do the impression. And I guess now I don't know what's going to happen next, but in that comedy, it doesn't belong to anyone in particular.
Will, you went on Rick Glassman's podcast.
Here we go.
Take Your Shoes Off.
Here we go.
Artificial intelligence.
Okay, so now
this is a clip of him
He recently
forcing
said some
Dan
astonishing
Soder to
things about your
watch.
appearance.
This
last
is-
week
I have
that might
asked him
shed
back.
light on
This
why.
is
You need to hear
He
this.
didn't say no, but
I think a
his
beef, maybe a Bruin. This
show.
is Beef
Right.
Boyz.
He kept
Begin.
saying that maybe
this was the
he
first Beef
saying like,
Boyz we
oh,
did.
I'll come
This
on
was
in a
the first
little,
Beef
or-
Boyz we did, and
Rick
Rick
should do
saw
it.
you know about this?
Did
Did you see?
No.
No, but he did. He
I
did
know that you
suggest
were on
weeks,
his
and then when
podcast
I follow up
which
that
makes
week,
no
I
sense
can't.
to
And
me.
then
I
another
will
week,
say one
sounds
thing
like
that
Dudesy
is
saying it was
open
made last
about
year.
it.
You
I
ever
remember
like just
that.
toss a bait out and be like,
Dude.
here,
And
well,
when he gave me the week, I said I'm literally free the entire week. I said, check in with you.
Whatever's going on, they
Yes,
don't know.
Rick Glassman, for those of you who don't,
Yeah.
everybody, look,
when
if you're
did Rick
a fan
Glassman
of
start having
podcasts,
a dog on his podcast?
in spite of myself, I'd like to say, check
I
out
think
Take
Will
Your Shoes Off Pod.
Sasso
Great
is
podcast.
so
Rick
funny.
Glassman
And I
is
think
very
both Chad and Will are so funny on Dudesy. And
versus like the same
I watch the podcast. If you don't watch podcasts, check out Dudesy. I don't have beef with Sasso. I have beef with
I don't know that much about him. I've seen his
forced
podcast a couple of
communication.
times.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I've
That's
seen
what
some
communication
work.
needs to
And
be.
just
It's
like
great.
I
It's
do
a
like it.
vicious
He read some
cycle.
interesting stuff.
If you
Rick's
don't
great.
communicate, it sounds like
Now
you try to
Drake.
communicate.
Sometimes I'm confused by my Dan is
confused
very
sometimes.
amicable about that whole thing. But and so here's what I'd like to say. This is last week on Rick's show that he had the brilliant Rick Kyle Dunnigan,
who, by the way, is so funny and does great impressions.
Dan is one of those guys with some incredible
Can I hear your Kyle Dunnigan's Trump?
And we know Kyle Dunnigan.
It's very good.
And his many talents.
It's very big.
Took an issue with me
money.
on like a radio station or something. And my appearance on his show a year and a bit ago. Normally that's what happens. Just kind of confusing. And I guess
I took issue.
And then you're doing stand-up that night in their town. You might say, hey, let's
I-
have a little bit of
podcast beef is so corny.
What else just explaining that? It's not-
So-
you don't feel it.
So he's
I actually got a fair amount of comments from people who are fans of mine saying, I can't believe you did that. You never talk bad about other people. You never talk about other people's business, and I don't.
have to do
No,
shit. but
I was out of line by putting in, but
the way that Rick
I was really
is-
upset
and
because
Rick
the studio I was
is
in
upset
was
that I
messing
didn't do
everything
an
up, and it's not
saying
that hard
on the show.
to
I'm
turn a
doing
camera on.
switches and saying that I said that
But
it's not
then,
that
but that's why
hard
I told him after,
to-
and it was
I was
it was
a little
fine.
confused by which was out of focus. There was a
He
bunch of
sort of
stuff
took matters
I remember
into
that
his
focus
hands.
on
And I don't like.
episode.
I don't want to do beef, but it's out
Clearly
there.
the beef is not squash.
It's
We're now
grown.
still
It's
being
grown.
Yeah, we're still
I
fucking
don't
talking
know
about
what
it, which
the
I don't know
fuck.
how long
Can you
it's
ask
gonna.
an
Oh,
impression?
and here he
This
is
is
at
the
the
beginning.
beginning.
So here I
Now
am.
he's
I
got
had Will
Dan
Sasso on my
watching
podcast,
Kyle
who I've even
Dunnigan.
told you is
Kyle
incredible.
Dunnigan's got
Yes,
sunglasses on.
And
Rick's out of focus.
broached this
And like I've said
before, but
before,
maybe
it's not hard.
I haven't like talked
You know,
about this
it's
publicly.
it's not.
Watch this.
It's
He
not
was
that
such an
hard,
asshole.
Rick.
It's on the screen.
That's not fair. But
No, he was such a.
There's
He was such
there's,
a.
he's out of
Everything
focus
that's on the
'cause he's
podcast isn't
ignored.
every phone
He has no
conversation
idea
that we
where the
have.
fuck he is.
Sure.
He's
It's just that
dragging.
you're just getting them a small little
fucking
sliver.
Dunnigan in on it.
Yeah, but I admit I've never done this before, and I shouldn't have. But with your
I've never even
permission,
heard of you
on the
having a
show
problem with the guest
because
like
Rick
this.
asked him.
I've had,
But
listen, I have
only
issues
after,
with something sometimes,
prefacing it
but
by
that's
saying
between
that
me and the
Will
person or
Sasso
people,
wouldn't
depending on how the
have
person
Kyle
identifies.
Dunnigan.
Some
So
people
basically, he's got
identify as a
multiple other
person.
people to do Schwarzenegger impersonation. You wouldn't do it.
Yes.
Do you
It
feel
does
some
sound like
obligation
it.
to,
And
again,
this
make
isn't
this
nice.
right
He can
as
say
a
no.
representative
Kyle
of the
Dunnigan
community?
seemed very
And then he was
diplomatic
waiting
about
for
it.
us.
Explain it.
Feel
By
some
the way,
way about it.
By the way,
Focus.
as you
Focus.
heard
What?
very clearly in
Yeah,
this
focus
clip,
on this, by the way.
Rick
Shit
called me
Focus
on the
on
phone
the episode
and
that I recorded
said
here
that
was
he
the dinosaurs.
is
He's so bad.
Yeah.
he's
Literally,
sorry
like,
that my
it was
back
so
hurt and shit.
expensive.
Okay, which
Yeah.
that
And
doesn't
then-
fucking matter. I don't know
It's
what the
not that
hell
hard.
that has to do
Everything's
with
free.
anything.
Well, paying
You can
people
still
to do
do
a job.
impression
You just
do the
job.
when your back
Do it
is
well.
hurt. But he's
And
coming
And
up
if you don't,
with
if you don't
this
want to do the
thing
job, don't
as
commit to
why
it. Don't say you
I
would like.
wasn't
You said
doing
you
it.
would.
With regard to your question,
I
yeah,
mean,
dude,
sometimes that just
we can
happens with
squash
people
the
in
fucking beef
situations
in
and they
the
don't want
future.
anything that
But
they
right
have
now,
made
you
an
know
agreement,
what I'm
an
very
unspoken social agreement.
Okay, see,
We talked about it
Kyle
before,
Dunnigan
and it
being
was
nice
something I
about this
wrote.
shit, but
I don't know,
honestly,
it took me 15,
first
20
of all,
minutes
I'd like
because something I wrote
so
for him, and then he
intent.
wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean,
But he
it
told me to write
sounds
it.
legitimate.
Blame it on me.
That's
Rather than,
yeah, that's a
hey,
shot
moving on.
By the way,
this
is
out of focus. It's
I
not
agree.
that hard. Here he is leaving a phone message for me.
And
while
it's
Kyle
really, it's not
Dunnigan-
that hard.
It's not. It's not.
a pod show
that
that isn't. It's really watch this. This is fucking unbelievable.
So he's leaving this message. Let's
Hey,
listen.
Will Sasso.
Yeah, he calls me Will asshole
You're
there.
doing dog
on
pound.
purpose.
Yeah.
Dan is fucking
Kyle Dunnigan,
over
who does
it.
the best Arnold
This whole fucking
Oh,
thing
good.
is
Thank
too
you.
much. It's just too
Hey,
much.
Did you ever think
Mr.
that when you
Freeze.
started doing your Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonation, it would
Did
eventually
you hear
lead to
Mr.
something
Yeah,
like this?
everyone
Giant beef
cool
with
off.
Normally it's two people that both do the same impression or something. And Rick's got he doesn't have a dog in that race.
He doesn't
That's
do
funny.
impressions.
No, he
Thank you
doesn't
for
do-
doing
I
that
don't know that he
silly
does
little
impressions.
thing.
He certainly
And you
doesn't
could have
do
said no.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
But here we
I don't
are.
think I've ever seen him do an impression.
It's I haven't seen him do impressions either, but I don't.
Weird.
I don't know. My you know what?
Well-
no, I don't. I'm not too worried.
Yeah.
I'm sure the beef is gonna. I'm sure it's.
I hope it dissipates
squashed
or
by
becomes
now.
squashed or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Thank you. Moving on.